Denner here with episode 4 of Chris Denner is not a robot. I'm Chris Denner, I'm not a robot. This is Indy. Now, Indy is in the bad books this morning, ladies and gents, because she stole 2 big bags of treats this morning from the kitchen and devoured both of them whilst I was in the living room setting up my LED lights. Usually she's glued to me, but this morning she decided to sneak off into the kitchen and grab them out of the shopping bag because I hadn't put them away. So, yeah. She is in the bad book. She's a bit of a criminal this morning. So today, episode 4, we're going to talk about this iconic image here. One of my favourite images. It was created in New York. It was a destination wedding. As you all know, I used to be a destination wedding photographer before COVID. And I used to love jetting around the world, shooting people's weddings. It's awesome. Absolutely awesome fun. So this was wedding from about 4 years ago, Kelly and Mike. It was December. I think it was the 3rd week of December. It was about 8 days before Christmas. It's over in New York, and just a great couple, great energy. And the thing I love about this image is, for me, I'm emotionally connected to it because I was actually there. I know what we went through to create this image, but I also think it's got a real us against the world vibe. So this image was created at Times Square. So this is Times Square. If you've never been to Times Square, it is hectic, it is busy, it is crazy. New York is my favourite city in the world because of all of those reasons. And every wedding that I shoot in New York, which has been 3 weddings now, I always end up in Times Square with the couple because it's just brilliant, it's iconic. So what we were doing on that particular day was we'd been to the church wedding, that was on I think 8th Avenue. And the wedding planner, we'd spoke about what we wanted to do. The wedding planner says, right, you've got to be done by 6 p.m. because you need to be at the launch because we're getting onto a ferry and we're going around Staten Island on a private ferry for the drinks reception, for the food, for the dance. So you've got to be on the launch for 6. And Kelly and Mike really wanted a photo in Times Square. Jumps in a cab. We get to probably 3 or 4 streets. Gridlock, total gridlock. That's what New York is like at the best of times. So we ended up ditching out of the cab, running probably 2 blocks down 5th Avenue, getting down to Times Square. Now, as we get to Times Square, it's about probably 3:40, 3:50. The light is really dropping. I'm quickly looking around and I'm like, cool. There's loads of neon. It looks like Blackpool or Vegas. There's so much neon. There's loads of ambient light, but the natural light's falling. So quickly, in the rundown, I'd actually made the decision that what I like to do for a lot of my portraits is actually like to put an external flash on. So I like to use a technique called off-camera flash. Now, all that is, it's a flash that's off the camera. The answer's in the question. On this occasion, I got my assistant to stack it onto a monopod. A monopod is just a single support beam that they hold. So what I did is very quickly, we rushed into Times Square. People were everywhere. People love, New Yorkers love people. New Yorkers are my kind of people. They are brilliant. But they love wedding couples. People were just shouting, hollering, congratulating, moving out the way for us. It's awesome. Quickly arranged Mike and Kelly. And what I did was then I first got the flash, so I was happy with the ambient light. So I knew I was going to use flash. So when I use off-camera flash, I always get my ambient light right first. So the ambient light is the light that's in the frame. I knew I didn't want to lose any of the neon. I knew I needed to use a relatively high F number because I wanted as much of the mid-range buildings to be in focus. I didn't want to have a very shallow depth of field with this photo. I wanted to keep as much of it in focus as possible. So I'd arranged that. And one of the things that I did to create that look, because I had a very high aperture, so I wasn't letting a lot of light in through the camera. I mean, I really wasn't. I think it was f8, f9, f8 I think. And so what I'd done was ended up opening the shutter all the way. Maybe, I don't know, here's the exfil data, have a look for yourself. And you can see that I opened the shutter up. So I've got that, I've got the ambient lit, but of course Kelly and Mike are all over the place, they're moving, because the shutter's open, I'm letting all this ambient light in, so there's lots of movement. So then what we did was when you put the flash in, turn the flash right down, the flash hits Kelly and Mike, but what that does is it kind of freezes them in the frame, which allows me to have the shutter open. allows me to have that shutter open longer. So Vanessa Joy did something recently I saw, amazing photographer, US photographer. She called it ghosting. I call it dragging the shutter. Loads of photographers call it different things, but it's a technique where you can hit something with a bit of flash, it will freeze it, and you leave your shutter open to let all this gorgeous ambient light come in. So here is the raw image that was shot in camera. Ding! And as you can see, it's pretty close to the finish, which is here. Ding! And I really love this photo. The only thing I had to do in Photoshop afterwards is once we'd finished with Kelly and Mike and they were all hustling back to the taxi, I just stayed where I was. I just shot what we call a plate image. Well, I call it a plate image. A safety shot where no one was in the frame. I just shot it with the same composition, same settings that I could then use as a Photoshop template to take out the lighting assistant. So yeah, that's what I really love about this photo is compositionally it works really well. One of the things that I had to do was I had to lay face down on the floor and have the camera out in front of me like that. I actually mounted the camera onto my camera bag, and once I'd got all the technical details right, I'd got the light in the right place, I'd got the shutter speed correct, I mounted the camera on my camera bag and actually then changed the camera settings to a self-timer. 5-second self-timer, hit the shutter, and then I was hands off, because what I didn't want to do is actually have my hand actually interfere in any movement on the camera. So my point I would make about this photo is to all photographers is to try and be as technically savvy as you can. Have as really good a basic foundations of light, be it flash, LED, artificial, natural light. Really understand all of these things, because light is our language. Light is how we communicate. Like I said, on the day we were running through traffic, we got down there, we were on site probably 90 seconds, and then we had to run back to the cab and jump in the cab to get over to the drinks reception. And the more solid foundation you have as a photographer with the technical stuff, the easier it's going to be able to create this stuff when you're panicking, when you're worrying. I was a little bit worried, if I'm honest. You're there in Times Square. This is, most photographers only get that chance 2 or 3 times their entire career. I couldn't blow it. So the other thing I love about this photo, more than anything, really, is the intimacy of the couple. I think that's really important. For me, it was the right lighting, it's the right approach, but it's Kelly and Mike, it's their story, it's them against the world. Everything else is happening around them in one of the busiest cities in the world, possibly one of the busiest spots in the world, and it's just them two doing their thing, lost in a moment. And I remember sitting in the back of the cab going over to the drinks reception, just looking at the photos on the back of the camera. I was like, yes, so happy with all of this, because I knew that I'd focused on the right elements of the frame, I'd focused on the story, on the narrative, but then not forgotten about the intimacy between Kelly and Mike. So to wrap up this photo, really it was a success because of, technically, off-camera flash. If I didn't have a flash that day, it wouldn't look like that. I enjoy using a lot of off-camera flash, I enjoy using a lot of LEDs, I enjoy using a lot of natural light. I don't subscribe to any one school of photography. I think as photographers we should understand all kinds of lighting as much as possible. And the other reason it really works is because I'd actually took the energy and the chaos of trying to create that photo and somehow managed to, in my mind, push it into the photo. I look at that and I am reminded of the hecticness, the busy nature, the movement of the photo. So that's what I really love about that photo. So I hope you enjoyed episode 4 of Chris Denner is Not a Robot. I'm Chris Denner, not a robot. So episode 5 is going to be something that a lot of people have been asking me about a lot, which is smoke bombs, smoke grenades, coloured smoke. They are awesome. They add instant drama to a photo, but they are pickled to use, and I have heard 1,000 horror stories about them going wrong. So what I'm going to be talking about on the next episode is this image. And what I'm going to be talking about is how I got this image working technically. Again, it's another image. It uses off-camera flash, and it also uses smoke grenades. And I'll be showing you the raw, unedited version and talking about the narrative process behind that photo as well. So that's going to be episode 5, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chris Denner is Not a Robot. I'm enjoying what I'm doing so far. It's really important to me though that you do subscribe, you do hopefully like each episode, and do leave a little comment down below please, even if it is just to tell Indy off for eating treats, because now she's having a treat crash and she's literally wiped out asleep next to me, which is unbelievable really. So I hope you enjoyed this guys, and I'll see you for the next episode. Take care.